We're incredibly grateful for your support. Before we begin today's tale, tell us, which city or country are you joining us from? We love connecting with our global audience. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Facade. Elliot Frost didn't become successful by accident. Growing up in a trailer park outside Boston with a mother who worked 3 jobs, he learned early that nothing came without sacrifice. By 30, he'd built Quantum Solutions from his garage into a tech security firm competing with industry giants. By 35, he'd marry Vanessa Pierce, the daughter of a banking executive who dazzled him with her charm at a charity gala. 7 years into their marriage, Elliot sat in his home office, staring at the email that would change everything. NextGen Technologies wanted to acquire Quantum. The offer, $47 million. His fingers hovered over the keyboard as Vanessa's voice drifted up from downstairs. "I don't know how much longer I can take this, Heather." Her voice carried the slight slur it always did after her 3rd martini lunch. "He's at his computer all day while his precious company bleeds money. We had to cancel Aspen this year." Aspen. Elliot minimized the acquisition offer. Their marriage had been cooling for years, but hearing her discuss their private struggles made something harden inside him. "You should see how Doug Morgan's wife lives," Vanessa continued. "She just got back from Milan with enough shopping bags to fill a store. Meanwhile, I'm stuck with a husband obsessed with saving a sinking ship." Doug Morgan. Elliot's jaw tightened. Morgan Technologies had been Quantum's main competitor until 6 months ago when they landed the Palmer contract, a government security deal worth millions that Quantum had been positioned to get. The loss had been devastating, forcing Elliot to lay off 20 employees. The doorbell interrupted his thoughts. Vanessa's laughter grew louder as she greeted someone. A man's voice, deep, confident. A voice Elliot recognized. "Is he home?" Doug Morgan asked. "Upstairs, drowning in spreadsheets," Vanessa replied dismissively. "He won't notice." Elliot stood, moving silently to the gallery overlooking the living room. From his vantage point, he watched as Doug's hand lingered on Vanessa's waist, her body leaning into his touch with familiar ease. "I missed you," Doug whispered, kissing her neck. Last night wasn't enough. Elliot retreated to his office, chest tight. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was professional. Had Vanessa been feeding Doug information? Was that how he'd secured the Palmer contract? His phone buzzed with a text from Nolan Burke, his childhood friend and the only employee who knew about the NextGen offer. "They need an answer by Friday. What are you thinking?" Elliot looked at the email again, then at the framed photo on his desk. Him and Vanessa on their wedding day. Her smile now seemed calculated, predatory. He typed his response to NextGen, accepting their offer with one condition: absolute secrecy until the deal closed in 3 months. No public announcement, no industry leaks. As far as everyone, including his wife, would know, Quantum Solutions was still struggling. Nolan called immediately after Elliot sent the email. "Are you sure about this?" "Never been more sure," Elliot replied. "But I need your help with something else. I need evidence." "Evidence of what?" Elliot watched through the window as Doug's Maserati pulled out of the driveway. "Everything." That night over dinner, Vanessa picked at her salmon, barely looking at him. "How was your day?" Elliot asked. "Fine," she said flatly. "Just lunch with Heather." "And after lunch?" She glanced up. "Shopping." "What?" Elliot nodded, taking a sip of wine. "I'm thinking of closing the Boston office. Cutting our losses." "Finally," she sighed. "I've been telling you to let go for months." "You have," Elliot agreed. "By the way, I ran into Doug Morgan at the bank yesterday. He mentioned his company's doing well." Vanessa's fork paused halfway to her mouth. "Did he?" "Very well. Since the Palmer contract." Elliot watched her carefully. "Funny thing is, they submitted almost the exact same security proposal we were developing." "That's business," she replied, a slight tremor in her voice. "Happens all the time." "Not like this," Elliot said quietly. "The proposal had specific encryption protocols we invented. Proprietary stuff." Vanessa set down her fork. "I'm tired, Elliot. I don't want to talk about work." As she left the table, Elliot's phone vibrated. A text from Nolan. "Found something. Meeting confirmed tomorrow. Beacon Hotel, room 612, 2 p.m. The next day, instead of going to the office, Elliot met Nolan at a coffee shop across from the Beacon Hotel. They've been meeting every Tuesday and Thursday for months, Nolan said, sliding a manila envelope across the table. But it gets worse. Inside were photographs of Vanessa entering secure areas of Quantum's offices after hours, accessing his computer, and leaving with flash drives. The Palmer proposal, Elliot said quietly. She stole it for him. There's more, Nolan continued. I have my tech guys check her devices. She's been photographing documents from your home office. Financial reports, client lists, everything. Elliot felt ice in his veins. The betrayal was complete, calculated. But instead of anger, he felt a strange calm descend. What are you going to do? Nolan asked. Elliot watched as a black Mercedes pulled up to the Beacon Hotel. Vanessa stepped out, checking her reflection before walking inside. I'm going to wait, Elliot said, and then I'm going to win. Chapter 2. The Deception. The NextGen acquisition moved forward in secret while Elliot maintained the illusion of Quantum struggles. He reduced office space, citing cost-cutting. He drove his older Audi instead of buying the Porsche he'd been eyeing. And at home, he played the part of a desperate entrepreneur, staying up late, furrowing his brow over financial reports that no longer mattered. Vanessa's affair with Doug continued, growing bolder. Twice she claimed to be visiting her sister in New York when she was actually with Doug at his lake house. Their tactics evolved too. Doug began poaching Quantum's clients directly, using information Vanessa provided to undercut Elliot's bids. On a rainy Tuesday in October, 3 weeks before the NextGen deal would finalize, Elliot received a call from Sylvia Winters, Quantum's biggest remaining client. I'm sorry, Elliot, Sylvia said. We're moving our contract to Morgan. They've offered the same security package at 30% less. Elliot pinched the bridge of his nose. That's below cost, Sylvia. He can't sustain those prices. It's not just the price, she replied hesitantly. Doug says Quantum might not be around much longer. He showed me your quarterly financials. The financial reports Vanessa had photographed from his home office. The real ones, not the modified versions he shared with most employees. Another betrayal. I understand, Elliot said evenly. Thank you for calling personally. When he hung up, Nolan was standing in his doorway. That didn't sound good. Morgan got Winters, Elliot confirmed. Using our stolen financials. Nolan closed the door. You realize they're trying to tank Quantum before the acquisition closes? If we lose too many clients, NextGen might pull out. They don't know about NextGen, Elliot reminded him. Doug thinks he's destroying my company to take over the market. Vanessa thinks she's helping him so she can trade up to a more successful husband. Either way, we need to stop the bleeding. Elliot nodded. Tell Renata to call our clients. Offer a loyalty discount, 15%. We just need 3 more weeks. That night, Elliot returned home to find Vanessa hosting an impromptu dinner party with her closest friends, Brooke Lawson, Tina Webster, and Claire Sullivan, all married to successful businessmen. When Elliot walked in, their conversation stopped abruptly. Elliot, Vanessa exclaimed with exaggerated surprise. I thought you'd be working late again. Lost another client today, he said, loosening his tie. Didn't see the point in staying. Oh, her smile faltered only slightly. Well, we were just having girls' night. There's food in the kitchen if you're hungry. As Elliot headed upstairs, Vanessa's voice carried behind him. Poor thing. He's taking it so hard. Quantum's basically finished, but he won't admit it. What will you do? Claire asked. I don't know. Vanessa sighed dramatically. Stand by my man, I suppose. What choice do I have? Laughter followed, cruel, dismissive. In his office, Elliot opened his laptop and checked his private email. The NextGen legal team had sent the final paperwork. In 17 days, he would be worth $47 million, and no one, not Vanessa, not Doug, not the women drinking wine in his living room, had any idea. The next morning, Vanessa left early for yoga, another hotel meeting with Doug, according to Nolan's tracker. Elliot called Pascal Reeves, his accountant, and one of the few people who knew about the acquisition. I need you to set up new accounts, Elliot instructed, separate from anything Vanessa has access to. Already done, Pascal confirmed. The money from NextGen will be invisible to her until you say otherwise. Good. And the other arrangements? The apartment lease is finalized. Furnished, as you requested. And I've begun transferring your personal items gradually, as discussed. Elliot had been methodically preparing, moving treasured books, family photos, and important documents to a luxury apartment downtown. Items Vanessa wouldn't notice missing amid their sprawling home. 2 days later, Doug's company announced their acquisition of Winters Security Systems, Quantum's former client. The business news celebrated Morgan's expanding empire while speculating on Quantum's downfall. That evening, Elliot overheard Vanessa on the phone. "It's happening exactly like he said," she whispered excitedly. "Quantum's losing everything. Doug says Elliot will have to sell for pennies soon." And then she paused. "Yes, of course I'll leave him. I've wasted enough time on a failure." The words stung less than they should have. What hurt more was the realization that their entire marriage had likely been transactional for her, a calculated investment that she now deemed unprofitable. The NextGen deal was scheduled to close on November 15th. On November 10th, disaster struck. A panic call from Nolan woke Elliot at 2 a.m. "Someone hacked our servers," Nolan reported. "They wiped the primary database and encrypted the backups. We're completely locked out." Elliot sat up, instantly alert. "Morgan, has to be. This is too sophisticated for an ordinary hack. What about the segregated server? The one with the acquisition details?" "Untouched," Nolan confirmed. "They don't know it exists." "But Elliot, if we can't restore operations before the NextGen inspection on the 14th. The acquisition agreement included a final technical audit. If Quantum systems were down, NextGen could walk away. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, Elliot said, already pulling on clothes. For the next 3 days, Elliot barely left the office, working alongside his remaining tech team to rebuild their systems. They ordered new servers, restored from offline backups, and implemented emergency security protocols. Vanessa called only once. "The charity gala is tomorrow night," she reminded him irritably. "You need to be there. The Morgans will be attending." "The Morgans? Not Doug." She still maintained the pretense. "I can't, Vanessa. We've had a major system failure." "Of course you have," she sighed. "Another crisis. Another failure. Fine, I'll go alone." On November 13th, just before midnight, they finally restored the system. The NextGen audit would proceed as scheduled. When Elliot finally returned home, exhausted but victorious, he found Vanessa stumbling in from the gala, champagne on her breath. "Look who decided to come home," she slurred. "How's the failing company?" "We fixed the problem," Elliot said simply. "Doesn't matter," she laughed, kicking off her heels. Everyone at the gala was talking about it. "Poor Elliot Frost," they said. "Such a shame about Quantum." She stepped closer, her smile cruel. "Doug announced another acquisition tonight. He's unstoppable." "Is he?" "He is," she insisted. "A real success. Not like you." Elliot studied his wife, beautiful still but hollow. "You should get some sleep, Vanessa. Tomorrow's going to be a big day." "Why? Did you finally find someone to buy your worthless company?" She laughed again. "Something like that," Elliot replied, heading upstairs to pack the last of his essential belongings. Chapter 3. The Humiliation. The NextGen audit began at 9 the next morning. By noon, they had verified Quantum systems were operational and secure. At 3 p.m., Elliot signed the final papers in NextGen's downtown offices. By 4 p.m., $47 million had been transferred to his new accounts. "Congratulations," said Timothy Walsh, NextGen CEO, shaking Elliot's hand. "You've built something remarkable. When will you announce the acquisition?" Elliot asked. "Monday morning," Timothy confirmed. "We'll keep you on as a consultant for 6 months, as agreed. After that, you're free to pursue other ventures, after the non-compete expires, of course." As Elliot left the building, he felt strangely light. For months, he'd been playing defense, protecting his company while gathering evidence of Vanessa and Doug's betrayal. Now it was time to go on offense. He called Nolan. "It's done. Are we set for tonight?" "Everything's arranged," Nolan confirmed. "But are you sure about this?" "It seems excessive," Elliot suggested. "I was going to say perfect." That evening, Vanessa informed Elliot that they'd been invited to a dinner party at Brooke Lawson's home. Everyone will be there, she emphasized, including the Morgans. Sounds important, Elliot agreed, straightening his tie. I wouldn't miss it. When they arrived, Elliot immediately noticed the atmosphere, the knowing glances, the poorly concealed smirks. Vanessa steered him toward the bar, then immediately abandoned him to join a group of women by the fireplace. Doug Morgan arrived 20 minutes later with his wife, Patricia, a quiet woman who smiled politely at Elliot before being whisked away by their hostess. Doug made his way to Vanessa, their body language betraying their intimacy even as they maintained public distance. Elliot, Brooke called out, silencing the room. We were just discussing the tech industry. Doug was sharing some exciting news about Morgan Technologies. All eyes turned to him, anticipating his discomfort. Was he? Elliot replied calmly, sipping his scotch. Yes, Doug said, stepping forward with barely concealed triumph. We've just secured financing to expand our Boston operations. The market is changing rapidly. It certainly is, Ellie agreed. Speaking of changes, Brooke continued with false concern. We heard about Quantum's troubles. Those server issues sounded dreadful. All resolved now, Elliot assured her. But the client losses, someone else chimed in. That must be devastating. Vanessa moved closer to Doug, her eyes gleaming with malice. Elliot's been working day and night trying to save things, but sometimes... She sighed dramatically. Sometimes you have to know when to admit defeat. The room grew quiet, tension building as Vanessa delivered her coup de grace. It's hard watching someone you once admired become such a pathetic failure. A few gasps, nervous laughter. Patricia Morgan looked horrified. Doug smirked. Pathetic failure, Elliot repeated softly. Strong words. I'm just being honest, darling. Vanessa continued, emboldened by the audience and several glasses of champagne. Everyone knows Quantum is finished. You're finished. Maybe it's time to let Doug put you out of your misery. More uncomfortable laughter. Elliot noticed Brooke recording the exchange discreetly on her phone, no doubt planning to share his humiliation with those not present. What do you think, Elliot? Doug asked, stepping forward. I could make you an offer for Quantum's assets. Out of professional courtesy. Before Elliot could respond, the doorbell rang. Brooke excused herself, returning moments later with a confused expression and an envelope. It's for you, Elliot. A courier just delivered it. Elliot accepted the envelope, opening it slowly. Inside was a press release on NextGen letterhead, marked with tomorrow's date. What is it? Vanessa demanded, her confidence faltering at Elliot's small smile. Just a business matter, Elliot replied, passing the paper to Doug. You want to see this, Doug? Doug scanned the document, his face draining of color. This is a joke, he managed. What is it? Vanessa repeated, grabbing the paper. Her eyes widened as she read aloud. NextGen Technologies announces the acquisition of Quantum Solutions for $47 million, effective immediately. Silence descended on the room. Then chaos. Is this true? Brooke asked, stunned. As of 4 p.m. today, Elliot confirmed, though it wasn't supposed to be announced until Monday. Vanessa stared at him in disbelief. You sold the company? For $47 million. I did, but the struggles, the client losses, a necessary deception, Elliot explained, his voice carrying across the now silent room. While you were sharing my company's secrets with Doug. Yes, I know all about that. I was negotiating the acquisition. Doug stepped forward, his face flushed with anger. This changes nothing. Morgan Technologies is still about to face federal investigation, Elliot interrupted, pulling another document from his jacket pocket. For corporate espionage and theft of proprietary technology. The FBI is particularly interested in how you obtained quantum security protocols for the Palmer contract. The room exploded in whispers. Patricia Morgan backed away from her husband, shock etched on her face. You can't prove anything, Doug snarled. I have video of Vanessa accessing my office computers after hours. I have the flash drive she used. I have hotel receipts, text messages, everything. Vanessa swayed slightly, gripping a chair for support. Elliot, I can explain. No need, he replied calmly. I understand perfectly. You married me when Quantum was growing. You betrayed me when you thought it was failing. And now, he glanced around the room at the shocked faces of her friends. Now everyone knows exactly who you are. With that, Elliot set down his drink, nodded politely to the stunned party guests, and walked out, leaving Vanessa standing alone as her carefully constructed world collapsed around her. Chapter 4. The Aftermath. The morning after the dinner party, Elliot woke in his new apartment downtown. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Boston skyline, a view he'd always wanted but had postponed buying during Quantum struggles. Now, sipping coffee in peaceful solitude, he checked his phone. 17 missed calls and 32 texts from Vanessa. He deleted them without reading. His doorman called. "Mr. Frost, your wife is in the lobby insisting on coming up." "I don't have a wife," Elliot replied calmly. "Please ask her to leave before I call security." An hour later, his lawyer, Serena Washington, arrived. A formidable woman with 20 years of high-profile divorce experience. She'd been preparing his case for weeks. "She's already contacted 3 divorce attorneys," Serena reported, spreading files across his dining table. "All sharks. They're going to argue that she's entitled to half the acquisition money as your spouse." "Let them try," Elliot said. "What's our position?" "Ironclad. Massachusetts is an equitable distribution state, not community property. Given her documented infidelity and corporate espionage, no judge will award her half." Serena pulled out another document. "Plus, there's your prenup, which she'll claim doesn't cover the acquisition because Quantum didn't exist when we married." "True, but the clause about infidelity is clear. She gets nothing beyond her personal property if she cheats. We have overwhelming evidence." Outside, rain began to fall, mirroring Vanessa's circumstances. By now, the news of Quantum's acquisition had spread throughout their social circle. Vanessa's friends, who had laughed at Elliot's failure, were undoubtedly distancing themselves. The woman who had called him pathetic was now the pathetic one. "What about Morgan?" Elliot asked. "The FBI has opened an investigation based on your evidence," Serena confirmed. "His company's stock dropped 12% this morning once the news broke. Patricia has already moved out, according to my sources." Elliot nodded. The collapse of Doug's life wasn't his primary goal, but it was a satisfying side effect. His phone rang. "Nolan, you need to see this," his friend said without preamble. "Check your email." The message contained a link to a private Instagram story from Brooke Lawson. Vanessa stood in Brooke's kitchen, mascara streaking her cheeks. "He tricked me," she sobbed to someone off camera. "He let me believe he was failing when he was negotiating a multi-million-dollar deal." "Who does that?" "Someone who knew you were cheating," Brooke's voice replied coldly. "Someone who knew you were stealing company information." "I want what's mine," Vanessa insisted. "Half that money is legally mine." "Good luck with that," Brooke laughed. "No one's going to side with you now. You called him a pathetic failure in front of everyone. On video. I had to delete my post. My followers were destroying you in the comments." The ultimate betrayal for Vanessa, her social circle turning against her. The video ended with Vanessa leaving, Brooke's voice trailing behind her. "Don't call me again. This isn't good for my brand." "Charming friends," Serena commented. "Birds of a feather," Elliot replied, closing his laptop. That afternoon, while Serena drafted divorce papers, Elliot met with Pascal to restructure his finances. The money from the acquisition was safely untouchable by Vanessa, but he wanted to ensure his future ventures were similarly protected. "I've created a trust," Pascal explained. "Any new businesses you start will be owned by the trust, not directly by you. It's completely legal, but adds another layer of protection." "Good," Elliot nodded. "I'm meeting with potential investors next week. I don't want to wait out the non-compete to start something new." "Already planning the next venture?" Pascal raised an eyebrow. "Most people would take some time off after a $47 million windfall." "I'm not most people," Elliot replied. "And I never planned for this to be the end. Just a new beginning." As he left Pascal's office, Elliot spotted Doug Morgan across the street, exiting the federal building where he'd presumably been interviewed by investigators. Their eyes met briefly, Doug's filled with hatred, Elliot's with cool indifference. In that moment, Elliot realized he felt no satisfaction from Doug's suffering, only a detached acknowledgement that justice was being served. When he returned to his apartment, the doorman handed him an envelope. Your wife. Ms. Pierce left this for you. Inside was a handwritten letter, the paper expensive and fragrant with Vanessa's perfume. Elliot, I made a terrible mistake. What happened between Doug and me was meaningless. A stupid fling during a difficult time in our marriage. I never stopped loving you. I'm proud of what you accomplished with Quantum. Please don't throw away 7 years because of one indiscretion. We can work through this. We can be happy again. All my love, Vanessa. Elliot placed the letter on his kitchen counter, noting the careful language. One indiscretion instead of months of betrayal. A difficult time instead of her active sabotage. No acknowledgement of the corporate espionage, the stolen information, the deliberate attempt to destroy his company. No mention of calling him a pathetic failure. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. She's outside your building again. Thought you should know. P. Patricia Morgan. An unexpected ally. Elliot looked out his window to the street below. Sure enough, Vanessa stood under an umbrella, watching the entrance. Her designer clothes and perfect makeup couldn't hide her desperation. He texted Patricia back. Thank you. Are you okay? Her reply came quickly, getting there. Divorce filed this morning. He doesn't know yet. A kinship of betrayal. Elliot saved her number, then called his doorman to increase security. Vanessa could stand in the rain all night if she wanted. He was done with her. That evening, Nolan came over with takeout and news. NextGen announced the acquisition officially. He reported between bites of pad thai. Our team has been offered positions with generous packages. Everyone's thrilled. Good, Elliot nodded. They deserve it after everything. And Morgan Technologies is in free fall. 3 board members resigned today, and their biggest client suspended their contract pending the FBI investigation. Elliot merely nodded. The revenge he'd imagined for months was unfolding perfectly, yet he felt strangely hollow. You don't seem very happy for a guy who just pulled off the perfect revenge, Nolan observed. I thought it would feel different, Elliot admitted. More satisfying, complete. Nolan studied his friend. Because it's not complete. Not yet. What do you mean? You've destroyed their reputations, their social standing. You've ensured Doug will face legal consequences. But Vanessa. Nolan paused. She still thinks she can win you back. She still thinks there's a chance for redemption. There isn't. I know that. But she doesn't. Not really. Nolan leaned forward. The final move isn't just walking away, Elliot. It's making it absolutely clear that there's no coming back. Elliot considered this. The divorce papers are being prepared. Papers can be contested, delayed, negotiated, Nolan countered. You need something definitive. Something that closes the door forever. As if on cue, Elliot's phone lit up with Vanessa's name. Her 20th call of the day. Maybe you're right, Elliot said quietly. Maybe there needs to be an ending. Chapter 5. The Counterattack. The first sign of Vanessa's counterattack came 3 days later. Elliot was meeting with venture capitalists about his new cybersecurity concept when his phone exploded with notifications. Someone had leaked his personal emails to several tech blogs, portraying the Quantum acquisition as a desperate fire sale rather than a strategic exit. Is this accurate? Asked Martin Reynolds, the lead investor, sliding his tablet across the conference table. The headline read, Quantum Solutions, sold under duress? The article quoted sources close to the company, claiming Elliot had begged NextGen to buy Quantum before it collapsed completely. There were excerpts from emails Elliot had sent during the negotiation process. Real messages, but selectively edited to remove context. No, Elliot replied firmly. This is a hit piece. By your wife, Nolan added, scrolling through his phone. She's the only source quoted by name. Martin raised an eyebrow. Domestic troubles affecting business? Not a good look, Elliot. My soon-to-be ex-wife is retaliating because I caught her having an affair with a competitor who used her to steal company secrets, Elliot stated flatly. The full story will come out in court. Still, another investor demurred. This creates complications. The meeting ended without commitments. Outside, Nolan handed Elliot his phone. She's been busy. Vanessa had given interviews to 3 publications, painting herself as the supportive wife blindsided by her husband's secret dealings. In her version, she'd never called him a failure. She'd been encouraging him to seek help for depression. The affair with Doug? A brief lapse in judgment after Elliot had emotionally abandoned her. She's fighting for her financial future, Nolan observed. And she's good at manipulating public opinion. Elliot's phone rang. Timothy Walsh from NextGen. I assume you've seen the stories. Timothy began without preamble. They're creating issues for us, Elliot. I'll handle it, Elliot promised. Vanessa's desperate. Handle it quickly, Timothy warned. Our stock dropped 3 points this morning. The board is concerned. As Elliot hung up, a text from Serena appeared. Emergency. Morgan's lawyer contacted me. They're filing a civil suit claiming the acquisition was fraudulent. Come to my office ASAP. By the time Elliot arrived at Serena's downtown office, she had already prepared a response strategy. They're alleging you deliberately created the appearance of business failure to devalue Quantum and drive away clients, making the company vulnerable to acquisition, Serena explained, pacing her corner office. That's ridiculous, Elliot scoffed. I maintained confidentiality about the acquisition, which is standard practice. You also have documented evidence that Morgan and Vanessa were the ones actively trying to sabotage Quantum, Serena agreed. But they're spinning a compelling narrative. Morgan's claiming you entrapped them to divert attention from your own questionable business practices. And Vanessa? She submitted an affidavit supporting his claims, alleging you manipulated her into gathering information about Morgan Technologies to eliminate your competition. Serena grimaced. She's portraying herself as the victim caught between 2 ruthless businessmen. Elliot felt a cold fury building. She's trying to rewrite history. Successfully, in some circles, Serena confirmed. Several of your former clients have expressed concerns about the acquisition, wondering if they were pawns in your scheme. The counterattack was more sophisticated than Elliot had anticipated. Vanessa and Doug weren't just defending themselves. They were trying to destroy his reputation and future prospects. What's our move? Elliot asked. We go nuclear, Serena replied, sliding a thumb drive across her desk. This contains every piece of evidence we've gathered, complete and unedited. Emails, texts, videos, financial records. We release it all. That exposes everything, Elliot noted. My business strategies, personal communications. Yes, Serena acknowledged. But it also proves beyond doubt that Morgan stole your proprietary information and that Vanessa was his willing accomplice. The complete context makes their current claims absurd. Elliot considered the thumb drive, his complete vindication, but at the cost of making public what should have remained private. There's one more thing, Serena added hesitantly. Vanessa's lawyer has proposed a settlement. She'll withdraw her claims and sign the divorce papers if you agree to a $20 million payment. Blackmail, Elliot said flatly. Essentially, yes. Elliot picked up the thumb drive. Release everything, and tell her lawyer we'll see them in court. That evening, all evidence of Vanessa and Doug's conspiracy went public through a carefully orchestrated release to selected journalists. By midnight, the narrative had completely reversed. Tech blogs that had questioned Elliot's ethics hours earlier were now publishing exposés on corporate espionage at Morgan Technologies. Vanessa's social media accounts went dark after thousands of comments condemned her betrayal. Doug issued a statement denying all allegations, but the evidence was overwhelming, particularly the security footage from Quantum's offices showing Vanessa accessing restricted areas after hours. At 2 a.m., Elliot's doorman called up. Sir, Miss Pierce is in the lobby again. She's not well. Is she causing a disturbance? She's crying, sir. Making a scene. Elliot closed his eyes. Despite everything, he felt a twinge of something. Not sympathy exactly, but recognition of shared history. Let her up. When Vanessa entered his apartment, she was a shadow of her former polished self. Her makeup was smeared, her designer clothes rumpled, her hair disheveled. Why would you release those videos? She demanded, her voice hoarse. Those texts were private. So was my company information, Elliot replied calmly. But you share that with Doug. I never meant to hurt you. she insisted, stepping closer. Doug manipulated me. He said he loved me. And now that his wife has left him, his company is under investigation, and his reputation is ruined. Vanessa looked away. He won't return my calls. Of course not. You're a liability now. Elliot moved to his kitchen, putting physical distance between them. What do you want, Vanessa? I want another chance, she whispered. We could start over. With my money, Elliot added. That's what this is really about. No, she protested, but her eyes gave her away. The same calculating look he'd seen when she discussed the Morgan contract with Doug. You know what's interesting? Elliot continued, leaning against the counter. I was so focused on the affair, the espionage, the public humiliation, I almost missed the most important question. What question? Why you married me in the first place? Elliot studied her face, still beautiful, still familiar after 7 years. Quantum was just starting to take off. I wasn't wealthy, but I had potential. You saw an investment opportunity. That's not true, Vanessa protested, but her denial lacked conviction. It is, Elliot said quietly. And when it looked like your investment was failing, you found a new one. It was never about love. Vanessa's expression hardened. Fine. You want the truth? I married you because you were going somewhere. Because you had ambition. Then you got complacent. While I was building a company worth $47 million, Elliot noted dryly. A company you kept secret from me, she snapped. Your wife. My betrayer, Elliot corrected. The person who called me a pathetic failure in front of her friends while sleeping with my competitor. The truth hung between them, ugly and undeniable. I want what I'm entitled to, Vanessa finally said, her voice cold. Half of everything. Elliot walked to his desk, retrieved an envelope, and handed it to her. Divorce papers. My only offer is what's outlined there. Your personal possessions and a settlement that will allow you to maintain a comfortable lifestyle while acknowledging your misconduct. Vanessa opened the envelope, her eyes widening. $2 million? After 7 years of marriage? This is insulting. It's generous, considering the circumstances. I'll fight you, she threatened. I'll drag this through the courts for years. You'll lose, Elliot replied calmly. The judge will see the same evidence everyone else has now seen. Your reputation is already destroyed. How much more damage are you willing to accept? Vanessa stared at him, her anger giving way to calculation once again. $2 million wasn't half of 47, but it was enough to disappear, to start over somewhere people didn't know her story. I need time to consider, she said finally. You have until tomorrow, Elliot replied. After that, the offer decreases by half. After she left, Elliot poured himself a scotch and stood by the window, watching the city lights. The confrontation had drained him, but it had also crystallized something important. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming his narrative, his life. His phone buzzed with a text from Patricia Morgan. Saw the evidence release. Thank you for including the text about me. Everyone now knows he was planning to leave me too. Elliot replied, You deserve the truth. So did you, she texted back. Dinner sometime? As friends who survived the same storm. Elliot smiled slightly. I'd like that. Perhaps there was life after betrayal after all. Chapter 6, The Alliance. The morning headlines declared Doug Morgan's professional demise. FBI raids Morgan Technologies. 3 executives had been arrested for conspiracy and corporate espionage. Doug himself was cooperating with authorities, reportedly offering information in exchange for leniency. Elliot's phone rang. Timothy Walsh again. The board is impressed with how quickly you contained the situation, Timothy began. The stock has recovered completely. Good to hear, Elliot replied, watching the financial news on mute. Morgan Technologies stock had plummeted another 30%. We'd like to accelerate your consultant role, Timothy continued. Full-time, starting immediately. Our security protocols clearly need revision after what happened with Morgan. The offer was tempting, a chance to shape NextGen's future while maintaining his connection to Quantum's technology. But Elliot had other plans brewing. I appreciate the offer, Timothy, but I need some time to deal with personal matters first. After hanging up, Elliot called Serena. Any word from Vanessa's attorney? Just came through, Serena confirmed. She's accepting the settlement with one condition. She wants the house. Elliot considered this. The home they'd shared held no sentimental value for him now, only memories of betrayal. Fine, but it counts against the settlement amount. Market value minus mortgage balance. That leaves her with about $800,000 cash, plus the house, Serena calculated. I'll draw up the revised agreement. With the divorce nearly resolved, Elliot turned his attention to his next venture. His phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. Are you free for that dinner tonight? I have information you might find interesting. Over dinner at a quiet restaurant overlooking the harbor, Patricia Morgan revealed what she discovered. Before I filed for divorce, I copied Doug's personal files, she explained, her voice steady despite the admission. I was looking for evidence of the affair, but I found something else entirely. She slid a folder across the table. Inside were financial reports, Morgan Technology's real numbers, not the rosy picture presented to investors. The company is over-leveraged, Patricia continued. The Palmer contract and the others they stole from you were keeping them afloat, but with the FBI investigation, they're going under, Elliot finished, scanning the documents. These client contracts are their only significant revenue stream, and they're all being suspended pending the investigation, Patricia confirmed. I thought you might want this information before it becomes public. Elliot studied her, poised, intelligent, and apparently untroubled by sharing her soon-to-be ex-husband's confidential information. Why are you showing me this? He asked frankly. Patricia smiled slightly. Because Doug didn't just betray you. He betrayed everyone who trusted him. The employees who will lose their jobs when Morgan Technologies collapses. The clients who relied on their security systems. Me. She paused. Someone needs to step in and stabilize the situation. Someone like me, Elliot surmised. You understand the technology. You have a capital. And now you have inside information about their vulnerabilities. Patricia leaned forward. Consider it my contribution to justice. The opportunity was elegant in its symmetry. Doug had attempted to destroy Quantum by stealing clients and proprietary information. Now Elliot could acquire Morgan Technologies itself, at a fraction of its previous value. This is corporate intelligence, Elliot noted. Possibly illegal for me to act on. Not if it comes out during divorce proceedings, Patricia countered. Which it will. My attorney will be filing these documents tomorrow as evidence of Doug's financial mismanagement during our marriage. A perfectly legal window of opportunity. Elliot felt a grudging admiration for Patricia's strategic thinking. I'm not interested in revenge anymore, he said carefully. This isn't about revenge, Patricia replied. It's about building something stronger from the ruins. The employees don't deserve to suffer because of Doug's actions. Her argument resonated with Elliot. He protected his own team for the next-gen acquisition. Morgan's employees deserved the same consideration. I'll think about it, he promised. The next morning, Elliot met with Nolan and Pascal to discuss the possibility of acquiring Morgan Technologies. Their stock is in free fall, Pascal confirmed. Down 67% since the FBI raid. They'll be looking for a buyer soon. With your capital and NextGen's backing, you could make an offer they can't refuse, Nolan added. The ultimate comeback story. Elliot shook his head. Not a comeback. A new beginning. He outlined his vision. Acquire Morgan's assets, but restructure completely under a new name. Retain the valuable employees, but implement Quantum's superior security protocols. Create something stronger than either company had been individually. Phoenix Security, Elliot said finally. Rising from the ashes. Pascal ran the numbers. You need partners. Even with your settlement, this is a significant investment. I have someone in mind, Elliot replied, thinking of Patricia's analytical mind and insider knowledge. That afternoon, as Elliot finalized his plans, he received an unexpected visitor, Brooke Lawson, Vanessa's former friend and confidant. I thought you should see this, she said without preamble, handing him her phone. The screen showed Vanessa's private Instagram account, a post dedicated to exposing Elliot's manipulation and emotional abuse throughout their marriage. The claims were outrageous, that he'd isolated her from friends, controlled their finances, belittled her ambitions. She's trying to salvage her reputation, Brooke explained. Rewrite history again. Why show me this? Elliot asked, handing back the phone. You participated in humiliating me at your dinner party. Brooke had the grace to look ashamed. I believe what Vanessa told me. We all did. But after seeing the evidence, she hesitated. I don't like being manipulated, Elliot. None of us do. Elliot considered this. Vanessa's social circle, once willing participants in his public humiliation, could now become powerful allies in protecting his reputation. What do you suggest? Let me help, Brooke offered. I have influence in our social circles. I can counter her narrative. An unexpected alliance, but a potentially valuable one. Elliot nodded slowly. Tell your story. The truth. As Brooke left, Elliot's phone rang. Serena again. Vanessa signed the papers, she reported triumphantly. The divorce will be final in 90 days. One chapter closing, another beginning. Elliot felt the weight lifting. Thank you, Serena, for everything. That evening, Elliot invited Patricia to his apartment to discuss his Phoenix security concept. She arrived with additional Morgan Technologies documents and a clear-eyed assessment of the opportunity. Their clients are nervous, but not yet jumping ship, she reported. They need continuity of service. If you move quickly, you could secure those relationships before competitors swoop in. And the employees? Terrified, Patricia confirmed, especially the ones who had nothing to do with the espionage. They're updating resumes, expecting layoffs. Elliot nodded. We'll need a core team from Quantum to implement our protocols, but we could retain most of Morgan's technical staff. Patricia raised an eyebrow. I need a partner who understands both the business and the people involved, Elliot explained. Someone with complementary skills and perspective. Someone like the betrayed wife of your former rival, Patricia said with a hint of wry humor. Someone like an MBA with 15 years of financial analysis experience who happens to own 20% of Morgan Technologies through her divorce settlement, Elliot countered. Patricia looked surprised. How did you know about my settlement terms? I didn't, Elliot admitted, but it's what I would have negotiated in your position. She smiled, the first genuine smile he'd seen from her. 23%, actually, and yes, I'm interested in your proposal. As they discussed details late into the night, Elliot realized he felt something he hadn't experienced in months. Excitement about the future. Not satisfaction from revenge, but anticipation of creation. His phone buzzed with a text from an unfamiliar number. Is it true? Are you buying Morgan Technologies? Doug Morgan, reaching out directly. Elliot showed Patricia the message. He's terrified, she observed. Everything he built is slipping away. Just like he tried to do to me, Elliot noted without emotion. Are you going to respond? Elliot considered the question. The old Elliot might have ignored it or sent something cutting. But the man who had emerged from betrayal had different priorities now. Yes, he decided, typing, not buying Morgan Technologies. Building something better from what remains. Your employees will be taken care of. There is something liberating about focusing on the future rather than punishing the past. Doug didn't reply, but Elliot hadn't expected him to. As Patricia prepared to leave, she paused at the door. You know, most people in your position would be focused on making Doug and Vanessa suffer. Elliot acknowledged. But I've realized something important. What's that? The best revenge isn't watching them fall, Elliot said quietly. It's rising so high they become irrelevant. Chapter 7. The Transformation. 3 months later, Phoenix Security launched with considerable industry attention. The press release announced Elliot Frost and Patricia Morgan as co-founders, with financial backing from NextGen Technologies and several venture capital firms that had initially hesitated after Vanessa's media campaign. The announcement triggered a flurry of speculation about the Phoenix rising from the ashes of corporate scandal. Business journals praised the strategic acquisition of Morgan Technologies assets, while tech blogs focused on the innovative security framework Elliot had developed, a hybrid of Quantum's protocols and NextGen's infrastructure. On opening day, Elliot stood in Phoenix's new headquarters, a renovated warehouse in Boston's Innovation District, watching his employees from both former companies found their places in the merged organization. Nervous? Nolan asked, joining him by the window. Focused, Elliot replied. This is bigger than Quantum ever was. The company had retained 80% of Morgan's technical staff and brought in key personnel from Quantum. The Palmer contract, temporarily suspended during the FBI investigation, had been reinstated under Phoenix's management. Other clients had followed, relieved to maintain security services without disruption. Speaking of big, Nolan continued, checking his phone. Our stock is up 18% since the opening bell. The public offering had been Patricia's idea, a limited IPO to generate capital for expansion while maintaining founder control. The market had responded enthusiastically, validating their vision. What about the other situation? Elliot asked quietly. Nolan understood immediately. Vanessa's Instagram following has dropped below 10,000. Her truth-telling campaign fizzled after Brooke and the others spoke out. Last I heard, she's trying to sell the house. The divorce had been finalized a week earlier. Vanessa had accepted the settlement, but continued her attempts to damage Elliot's reputation until her former friends intervened, sharing their own experiences with her manipulation. The social circle that had once laughed at Elliot's failure now excluded Vanessa completely. And Morgan pleaded guilty to reduced charges, Nolan reported. 5 years probation, community service, and a permanent ban from serving as an officer in any publicly traded company. He's toxic in the industry. Elliot absorbed this information without particular satisfaction. Doug and Vanessa's fates no longer dominated his thoughts. They were footnotes in a story that had moved beyond them. Patricia joined them, tablet in hand. The London office called. They've secured the European banking contract. Their international expansion was proceeding faster than projected. Phoenix had opened satellite offices in London, Singapore, and Toronto within its first quarter of operation. That puts us ahead of target for the year, Elliot noted. By 32%, Patricia confirmed with satisfaction. The board will be pleased. Their partnership had proven remarkably effective. Patricia's financial acumen complemented Elliot's technical vision, creating a balanced leadership approach that investors and employees alike responded to. As they prepared for the company's first all-hands meeting, Elliot received an unexpected email. The sender, Dub Morgan. Elliot, I heard about the European contract. Congratulations. You've accomplished in 3 months what took me years to build toward. I won't ask for forgiveness. What happened between us went too far for that. But I want to know I recognize what you've done with Phoenix. You could have destroyed everything, fired everyone. Instead, you built something better. Good luck with your future endeavors. Doug, not quite an apology, but an acknowledgement. Elliot showed the message to Patricia. Surprising, she remarked. Community service must be having an effect. Or reality, Elliot suggested. He's watching from the sidelines as we succeed where he failed. The all-hands meeting went smoothly, with Elliot and Patricia outlining Phoenix's first-year goals and answering employee questions. The culture they were building emphasized transparency and collaboration, lessons learned from their previous experiences. Afterward, as they returned to Elliot's office, his assistant mentioned that a package had arrived. Inside was a flash drive and a note. Thought you should have this. It contains everything Vanessa took from your systems, original files, unaltered. I kept backups. I shouldn't have. D. Patricia raised an eyebrow. A peace offering? Or clearing his conscience? Elliot replied, securing the drive in his safe. He'd have the security team analyze it later. That evening, while reviewing quarterly projections, Elliot received a text from Brooke. Have you seen this? Attached was a link to a real estate listing. Vanessa had finally put their former home on the market. The asking price was well below market value, suggesting financial pressure. Elliot closed the link without comment. The house, like his marriage, belonged to the past. You could buy it, Patricia suggested, noticing his expression. Full circle moment. No. Elliot shook his head. I'm not interested in circles. Only forward movement. Later, walking along the harbor after a late dinner discussing expansion plans, Patricia asked the question Elliot had been anticipating. Does it feel like you thought it would? The success, the vindication? Elliot considered this carefully. It feels clarifying, like fog lifting. Not satisfying? She pressed. Not in the way I expected, he admitted. When I first discovered their betrayal, all I wanted was to make them feel what I felt. Humiliated, betrayed, discarded. But somewhere along the way, that stopped being the point. What became the point? Creating something meaningful from the experience, Elliot replied, watching boats sway gently in the marina, using the betrayal as fuel rather than letting it consume me. Patricia nodded thoughtfully. I understand that. After I found out about Doug and Vanessa, I spent weeks plotting elaborate revenge scenarios. But when I actually copied his files, it wasn't about hurting him anymore. It was about protecting myself and finding a path forward. Their shared experience of betrayal had created an unusual bond. Not romantic, but something equally valuable. Mutual respect and understanding without the need for pretense. Speaking of paths forward, Patricia continued, the West Coast expansion team needs an answer about the San Francisco location. Even now, at dinner, work remained central to their connection. Elliot found this refreshing after years with Vanessa, whose interest in his professional life had been purely extractive. Let's approve it, he decided. Silicon Valley presence is essential for the government contracts we're pursuing. As they walked back toward Patricia's car, Elliot's phone buzzed with a news alert. Former Morgan Technologies CFO agrees to testify against investment banking partners in corporate fraud case. The scandal was expanding beyond Doug, revealing systemic issues in how Morgan had operated and been financed. Phoenix, by contrast, had established rigorous transparency and compliance protocols from day one. Another bullet dodged, Patricia commented, reading over his shoulder. If you'd acquired Morgan directly instead of just the assets, we'd be dealing with their legal liabilities, Elliot finished. Your restructuring advice was correct. We make a good team, she noted with professional satisfaction. We do, Elliot agreed, experiencing again that sense of forward momentum, of building rather than destroying. When he returned to his apartment, a familiar figure waited in the lobby, Vanessa. Thinner than before, her designer outfit replaced by simple jeans and a sweater, she appeared diminished somehow. Vanessa, Elliot acknowledged, stopping a safe distance away. Why are you here? I sold the house, she said without preamble. I'm moving to Chicago next week. Fresh start. Good for you. She fidgeted with her purse strap. I wanted to, I don't know, say something before I left. I think we've said everything that matters, Elliot replied, his voice neither cold nor warm, simply neutral. I saw the news about Phoenix, she continued, ignoring his response. It's impressive. You're doing exactly what you always said you would. Yes. An awkward silence stretched between them. 7 years of shared history reduced to uncomfortable small talk. I was wrong about you, Vanessa finally said. When I called you a failure. You were never that. No, Elliot agreed. I wasn't. I was the failure, she added, her eyes downcast. In our marriage, in seeing who you really were. Elliot studied her, searching for manipulation, but finding what appeared to be genuine regret. Not enough to change anything, but perhaps enough to close this chapter properly. We both failed, Vanessa, he said quietly. We just failed in different ways. She nodded slowly. I'm sorry. For everything. I know, Elliot replied. And he did know. Not because he trusted her, but because he understood the particular pain of losing everything that mattered and recognizing your own role in that loss. Good luck in Chicago. As he stepped into the elevator, leaving Vanessa behind, Elliot realized he felt neither triumph nor anger. Just a calm certainty that his life was moving in the right direction, away from betrayal and toward possibility. Chapter 8. The Recognition. 1 year after Phoenix Security's launch, the company hosted an industry gala celebrating its unprecedented first-year growth and the opening of its 10th international office. The event, held in Boston's revitalized waterfront district, attracted technology leaders, investors, and media figures eager to witness the company that business journals now call the security sector's rising star. Elliot stood at the entrance, greeting guests alongside Patricia. Their professional partnership had evolved into a smoothly functioning leadership dynamic that industry analysts frequently cited as key to Phoenix's success. Quite a crowd, Patricia observed, nodding toward the growing assembly of tech luminaries. Even Timothy Walsh came, despite NextGen now being our competitor in the European market. Strategic competitors, strategic allies, Elliot replied. It's a small industry. Throughout the evening, Elliot navigated conversations with the easy confidence of someone who had not only survived adversity, but transformed it into unprecedented success. Phoenix had surpassed its 5-year growth projections in just 12 months, acquired 3 smaller security firms, and developed proprietary technology that was revolutionizing the industry. During a quiet moment, Nolan approached with a champagne flute and a grin. "Have you seen the Forbes article?" "Which one?" Elliot asked. The business press had been covering Phoenix extensively. "Phoenix Rising: How Betrayal Forged the Security Industry's New Leader," Nolan quoted. They interviewed Doug Morgan. Elliot raised an eyebrow. "What did he say?" "That losing Quantum's technology was the most expensive mistake of his career, and that you recognize an opportunity he missed by focusing on short-term gains rather than building something lasting." A public admission of error, something Elliot would never have expected from the man who had tried to destroy his company and steal his wife. "Interesting timing," Patricia noted. "His probation hearing is next month, isn't it?" 3 weeks, Nolan confirmed. His community service supervisor says he's been exemplary, teaching coding to underprivileged kids, apparently. Elliot absorbed this information without comment. Doug's journey was his own, a path of consequences and possibly redemption that had nothing to do with Phoenix's trajectory. As the formal dinner portion of the evening began, Elliot took his place at the head table. From this vantage point, he could see the entire gathering, over 300 people whose professional lives were now connected to the company he and Patricia had built from the ruins of betrayal. The keynote speaker, a renowned tech industry analyst, highlighted Phoenix's impact. What makes this company remarkable isn't just its growth metrics or innovative technology. It's the story of resilience that underlies its creation. When faced with corporate espionage and personal betrayal, Elliot Frost and Patricia Morgan chose to build rather than merely retaliate. The result is a company culture founded on integrity and transparency that has attracted the industry's top talent. After dinner, as guests mingled during the cocktail reception, Elliot noticed a familiar face across the room. Brooke Lawson, deep in conversation with several tech journalists. Their paths had crossed occasionally over the past year, their former antagonism replaced by a cautious professional respect. "Mr. Frost?" A voice interrupted his observation. He turned to find Martin Reynolds, the investor who had hesitated after Vanessa's media campaign. "Remarkable achievement, this company of yours." "Thank you, Martin. I was wrong to doubt you," Reynolds admitted. "Your vision for Phoenix was clearer than mine." "You were being prudent," Elliot replied diplomatically. "Given the circumstances." "Perhaps." Reynolds swirled his scotch thoughtfully. "But I've learned an important lesson from watching you this past year. True leadership isn't about avoiding adversity. It's about transforming it into opportunity." The observation struck Elliot as particularly Apartment Phoenix had never hidden the circumstances of its creation. Instead, the company had incorporated those lessons into its foundational principles: transparency in all operations, rigorous security protocols, and an ethical framework that prioritized long-term value over short-term gains. Later that evening, as the event wound down, Elliot stepped onto the waterfront terrace for a moment of quiet reflection. Boston Harbor stretched before him, city lights reflecting on dark water. "Quite a view," Patricia commented, joining him. "Appropriate for tonight." "How so?" "You're standing at the edge of something vast, looking out at possibilities," she explained. "Just like when we started Phoenix." Elliot smiled slightly. Their professional relationship had developed its own shorthand, an ability to understand each other's perspectives without unnecessary elaboration. "The Tokyo expansion is confirmed," Patricia continued. "Board approved it unanimously this afternoon." "That's 3 months ahead of schedule," Elliot noted with satisfaction. "And the government contract came through. We beat out NextGen. A significant victory." The contract would establish Phoenix as the security provider for critical infrastructure across multiple federal agencies, precisely the type of long-term, stable business that would ensure the company's continued growth. "Timothy Walsh congratulated me earlier," Elliot mentioned. "Said we earned it fair and square." "Professional respect," Patricia observed. "The kind that can't be bought, only earned." As they discussed next steps for the Tokyo office, Elliot's phone buzzed with a news alert. Vanessa Pierce launches Tech Education Foundation in Chicago, focusing on women in STEM. Patricia noticed his expression. Something important? No, Elliot replied, putting away his phone. Just the past finding its own way forward. The news about Vanessa was unexpected, but somehow fitting. She had reinvented herself, just as he had, though in a different direction. Her foundation, according to the brief article, was receiving positive attention for its scholarship programs and mentorship opportunities. Sometimes I wonder, Patricia said thoughtfully, what would have happened if Doug hadn't betrayed you? If Vanessa had remained loyal? Quantum would have continued growing steadily, Elliot speculated. Successful, but smaller in scope than Phoenix. More conventional. And you would have been happy with that? Elliot considered the question carefully. I would have been content, he decided, but I wouldn't have been challenged to reimagine what was possible. So, in a strange way, they did me a favor, Elliot finished with a hint of irony. Though not intentionally. As the last guest departed and the event staff began clearing tables, Elliot and Patricia returned inside to thank the organizers. The gala had accomplished its purpose, positioning Phoenix as not just a successful company, but an industry leader with a compelling origin story. What's next? Patricia asked as they walked toward the exit, her question encompassing more than just immediate business matters. Expansion, Elliot replied simply, but measured, strategic. Quality over speed. I meant personally, Patricia clarified. You've rebuilt your professional life brilliantly. But the rest? The question was subtle but pointed. Elliot had focused entirely on Phoenix over the past year, leaving little room for anything else. His personal life remained minimal. Work, occasional dinners with Nolan or Patricia to discuss business, and solitary evenings in his downtown apartment. I'm not sure, Elliot admitted. For so long, proving Vanessa wrong was the driving force. Now that Phoenix has succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. You need a new motivation, Patricia suggested. A new purpose, Elliot corrected. One that isn't defined by what happened before. As they reached the valet stand, Patricia's driver pulled up in her Tesla. Think about it, she said. Phoenix doesn't need a founder who's only living for the company. It needs a leader with a complete life, perspective, balance. She was right, Elliot realized. The company they'd built deserved leadership that wasn't frozen in the amber of past betrayals, but actively engaged with future possibilities, professional and personal. I will, he promised. After Patricia departed, Elliot declined his own car service, choosing instead to walk along the waterfront. The spring night was clear, the city skyline brilliant against the dark sky. 1 year ago, he had stood in a different waterfront spot, discussing Phoenix's potential with Patricia. Now, that potential was being realized daily, exceeding even his optimistic projections. His phone buzzed again. Another news alert, this one about Doug Morgan. Former tech executive completes probation requirements early, launches coding education program. The timing of these updates about both Vanessa and Doug struck Elliot as strangely synchronistic. On the night Phoenix celebrated its triumph, both of the people who had betrayed him were finding their own forms of redemption. The realization brought an unexpected sense of completion. The story hadn't ended with his revenge or their downfall. It had continued, evolving in directions none of them could have anticipated. There was something satisfying about that continuation, that transformation of devastation into something constructive for all involved. As Elliot walked back toward his apartment, he felt the last vestiges of bitterness dissolving. What remained wasn't forgiveness exactly, but a recognition that the betrayal that had once defined his existence had become merely one chapter in a longer, more complex narrative. The company he had built from that betrayal now employed hundreds of people, protected crucial data for clients worldwide, and was changing industry standards for security protocols. The personal humiliation he had suffered had been replaced by professional respect and recognition. The failure Vanessa had mocked had become a success beyond what either of them had imagined possible. And in that success, Elliot had discovered something more valuable than revenge. The capacity to transform pain into purpose, Betrayal into Creation. Chapter 9. The Resolution. 18 months after Phoenix Security's launch, Elliot stood in the company's expanded headquarters, watching employees navigate the open-concept workspace he and Patricia had designed to foster collaboration. The company now employed over 800 people globally, with offices in 15 cities across 4 continents. The Seoul team just closed the Asian Banking Coalition deal, Nolan reported, joining him at the observation window overlooking the main floor. That puts us ahead of target for Q3. Good, Elliot nodded. What about the Government Security Summit next month? All arranged. You're giving the keynote on emerging threats in critical infrastructure protection. The Secretary of Defense confirmed his attendance. The company's growth had attracted attention at the highest levels of government and industry. Phoenix was no longer simply succeeding. It was helping shape security policy and standards worldwide. By the way, Nolan added casually, I saw an interesting press release this morning. Doug Morgan's Educational Foundation is partnering with MIT on a cybersecurity scholarship program for disadvantaged students. I saw that, Elliot acknowledged. Seems he's found his calling. Does it bother you, seeing him rebuild his reputation? Elliot considered the question. No, he said finally. His path and mind diverged permanently 2 years ago. What he does now has no bearing on Phoenix. This was true. Doug Morgan's betrayal had been the catalyst for Phoenix's creation, but the company had long since outgrown that origin story. Its success was built on innovation and integrity, not on the ashes of old grievances. Later that morning, Elliot met with Patricia to finalize their 5-year strategic plan. Their working relationship had evolved into a seamless partnership, each complementing the other's strengths. The board unanimously approved the research division expansion, Patricia reported. They were particularly impressed with the quantum encryption prototype. That's Lisa Cheng's project, Elliot noted, referring to a brilliant engineer they had recruited from a competitor 6 months earlier. She's revolutionizing our approach to data protection. Speaking of protection, Patricia continued, the legal team has completed the intellectual property audit. All our innovations are properly secured this time. The reference to quantum stolen protocols was subtle but pointed, a reminder of lessons learned and vulnerabilities addressed. Phoenix's security extended beyond its product offerings to the company itself. As they concluded their meeting, Patricia hesitated. Are you attending the Tech Innovation Awards next week? Phoenix is nominated in 3 categories. Of course, Elliot replied. Our team deserves the recognition. I heard Vanessa might be there, Patricia mentioned carefully. Her foundation is nominated for the Diversity Initiative Award. Elliot absorbed this information without visible reaction. Then I'll congratulate her if we cross paths. Patricia studied him with a perceptiveness that made her such an effective business partner. You've really moved past it all, haven't you? Not past it, Elliot clarified. Through it. There's a difference. Moving past suggested forgetting, while moving through acknowledged the permanent impact of experience. The betrayal had changed him, hardened him in some ways, yes, but also expanded his vision of what was possible. That evening, Elliot hosted a dinner at his home for Phoenix's senior leadership team, a quarterly tradition he had established to foster camaraderie beyond the office. His downtown penthouse, purchased 6 months earlier, reflected his evolved perspective, open and light-filled, with views of the city he had always loved but now saw from a new vantage point. As conversation flowed around his dining table, Elliot found himself observing rather than participating, appreciating the intelligent, committed people who had joined his vision and helped transform it into something greater than he had initially imagined. When the last guest departed, Elliot poured himself a scotch and stepped onto his terrace. Boston spread before him, a tapestry of lights against the night sky. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Congratulations on the Innovation Award nominations. Well deserved. Vanessa. How characteristic of her to presume contact was still appropriate. And yet, how changed from the woman who had once called him a pathetic failure. After a moment's consideration, Elliot replied simply, Thank you. Good luck with your foundation's nomination. Professional courtesy nothing more. The exchange complete, he returned his attention to the city view, thinking about Phoenix's trajectory. The company had reached a crucial inflection point, large enough to have significant impact, but still agile enough to innovate rapidly. The choices made now would determine its long-term legacy. The following Tuesday, Elliot attended a private meeting with government cybersecurity officials concerned about vulnerabilities in the nation's power grid. Phoenix's expertise in critical infrastructure protection had made it a trusted advisor at the highest levels of national security. The threat landscape is evolving faster than our defensive capabilities, explained Admiral Helen Richards, the newly appointed Cyber Command Director. We need partners who understand both the technical and strategic dimensions. That's precisely where Phoenix has focused our development efforts, Elliot replied, outlining their advanced threat detection systems. As the meeting concluded, Admiral Richards asked to speak with Elliot privately. Your company's approach to security integration is impressive, Mr. Frost. But what interests me more is how you rebuilt after what happened with Quantum and Morga Technologies. You've done your research, Elliot observed. Thoroughly, she confirmed. Before trusting a company with national security matters, we need to understand its leadership. You transformed a personal and professional betrayal into something constructive rather than destructive. That demonstrates character. The Admiral's assessment was unexpected but gratifying. Recognition that the path he had chosen after the betrayal mattered more than the betrayal itself. On the night of the Tech Innovation Awards, Phoenix won in all 3 nominated categories, including the prestigious Security Solution of the Year. As Elliot accepted the final award on behalf of the company, he scanned the audience briefly, noticing Vanessa seated with her foundation team several tables away. Phoenix Security was born from the recognition that vulnerability and strength are not opposites, but interconnected realities, Elliot said in his acceptance speech. Our greatest innovations emerged from moments when we understood that security isn't about building impenetrable walls, but about creating systems resilient enough to withstand breaches and learn from them. In technology, as in life, it's not the absence of threats that defines success, but how we respond to them. The applause was enthusiastic, the industry's acknowledgement of both Phoenix's technical achievements and the philosophy underlying them. Later, during the reception, Elliot found himself face-to-face with Vanessa for the first time in over a year. She looked different, more substantial somehow, less polished but more authentic. Congratulations on your wins, she said, maintaining a professional distance. Phoenix is doing remarkable work. Thank you, Elliot replied evenly. I heard your foundation's STEM scholarship program is making significant impact. We're trying, Vanessa acknowledged. It's redemptive, helping young women find their way into tech careers. An interesting choice of word, redemptive. Elliot studied her, seeing not the woman who had betrayed him, but someone who, like Doug, had found an unexpected path forward from the wreckage of poor choices. Your speech resonated with me, Vanessa continued, especially the part about resilience being more important than invulnerability. It's what I've learned, Elliot said simply. Me too, she replied, though my lesson was more painful and self-inflicted. A moment of genuine connection, not reconciliation, but mutual recognition of shared experience seen from opposite sides. I should rejoin my team, Elliot said, gesturing toward Patricia and the Phoenix executives gathered nearby. Of course, Vanessa nodded. I just wanted to say, I'm glad you didn't let what happened define you. What you've built with Phoenix is extraordinary. It is, Ellie agreed, but not because of what happened before, because of what came after. As he rejoined his colleagues, Elliot felt a sense of closure that had nothing to do with vindication or revenge. The company celebrating around him, the recognition from peers and government officials, the global impact of Phoenix's security innovations. These were the true resolution to the betrayal he had suffered. The following morning, Elliot met with Patricia to discuss Phoenix's next expansion phase. Their 5-year plan had already been surpassed in half that time, necessitating more ambitious goals. The board is recommending we consider acquisition offers, Patricia mentioned, reviewing the latest financial projections. NextGen has expressed serious interest. The valuation would be substantial and give us both significant personal wealth, Elliot noted, beyond what we already have. Yes, Patricia agreed. But that's not the most important consideration, is it? No, Elliot confirmed. What matters is Phoenix's mission, the impact we're having on global security infrastructure. They looked at each other with mutual understanding. Money had never been the primary motivation for either of them. Not when they founded Phoenix, and not now, when their success had exceeded all financial metrics. What do you think? Patricia asked. Do we sell and start something new, or keep building? Elliot considered the question thoughtfully. 2 years ago, selling Quantum had been the right choice, a necessary step in his personal and professional evolution. But Phoenix was different. It wasn't built as a stepping stone or an escape route. It was the culmination of lessons learned through betrayal and redemption. We keep building, he decided. Phoenix has barely scratched the surface of what's possible. Patricia smiled, clearly having anticipated his answer. I was hoping you'd say that. I've already drafted our counterproposal to the board. We maintain majority control, but open up additional investment channels for expansion. Perfect, Elliot nodded. Let's focus on the quantum encryption division first. That's where the future lies. As they finalized the details, Elliot reflected on the journey that had brought him to this moment. The betrayal that once seemed like the end of everything had instead become the foundation for something far greater than he had initially imagined. The wife who had laughed at his apparent failure now led a foundation helping others succeed. The rival who had tried to destroy his company now educated disadvantaged students. And Elliot himself had transformed from a successful entrepreneur into a visionary leader whose company was reshaping global security standards. None of them had become who they expected to be. The crisis that shattered their previous identities had forced each to rebuild with different materials, different blueprints. For Elliot, that rebuilding had resulted in Phoenix. Not just a company, but a philosophy about transforming vulnerability into strength, betrayal into creation. That evening, as he reviewed Phoenix's latest security protocols in his home office, Elliot paused to look at the framed photo on his desk. Not a personal memento, but the company's first team picture, taken the day Phoenix officially launched. The small group of committed pioneers who had believed in his vision, despite the scandal surrounding Quantum's dissolution. Next to it stood the 3 Innovation Award trophies, tangible recognition of how far they had come. But more meaningful than the awards was what they represented. The journey from humiliation to triumph, from betrayal to creation. The failure Vanessa had mocked had become the catalyst for unprecedented success. The moment she had called him pathetic had ultimately revealed her own limitations, not his. And the tears she had shed when realizing what she had lost had watered the seeds of something new, not just for Elliot, but for all of them. As Phoenix continued its ascent, redefining industry standards and expanding its global impact, Elliot recognized the profound truth at the heart of his journey. True resilience wasn't about avoiding wounds, but about how those wounds transformed you. Not despite the betrayal, but because of it, he had discovered capabilities and vision he might never have otherwise found. The silent checkmate wasn't serving Vanessa divorce papers or watching Doug's downfall. It was creating Phoenix from the ashes, a company and a life that had transcended the very circumstances that catalyzed their creation. In the end, moving on didn't mean forgetting the betrayal. It meant transforming it into something so magnificent that it became merely the first chapter in a much greater story. One still being written, with possibilities extending far beyond what anyone could have imagined when that initial foundation shattered. And in that ongoing creation, Elliot had found not just success, but something far more valuable. The knowledge that our greatest strengths often emerge from our moments of greatest vulnerability, and that betrayal, properly transformed, can become the cornerstone of something extraordinary. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.